The Pact of Biak-na-Bato, signed on December 14, 1897, created a truce between Spanish colonial Governor-General Fernando Primo de Rivera and the revolutionary leader Emilio Aguinaldo to end the Philippine Revolution. Aguinaldo and his fellow revolutionaries were given amnesty and monetary indemnity by the Spanish government, in return for which the revolutionary government would go into exile in Hong Kong. Aguinaldo had decided to use the money to purchase advance firearms and ammunition later on return to the archipelago. The pact was signed in San Miguel, Bulacan, in the house of Pablo Tecson, a Philippine revolutionary captain who served as Brigadier General in the Brigada Pilar of General Gregorio del Pilar during the revolution. Provisions. According to Aguinaldo, writing in 1899, the principal conditions of the pact were that I, and any of my associates who desire to go with me, would be free to live in any foreign country. Having fixed upon Hong Kong as my place of residence, it was agreed that payment of the indemnity of $800,000 should be made in 3 installments, namely, $400,000 when all the arms in Biak-na-Bato were delivered to the Spanish authorities, $200,000 when the arms surrendered amounted to 800 stands, the final payment to be made when 1,000 stands of arms shall have been handed over to the authorities, and Te Deum sung in the cathedral in Manila as thanksgiving for the restoration of peace. The latter part of February was fixed as the limit of time wherein the surrender of arms should be completed. The whole of the money was to be paid to me personally, leaving the disposal of the money to my discretion and knowledge of the understanding with my associates and other insurgents. Prior to evacuating Biak-na-Bato, the remainder of the insurgent forces under Captain General Primo de Rivera should send to Biak-na-Bato 2 generals of the Spanish army to be held as hostages by my associates who remained there until I and a few of my compatriots arrived in Hong Kong, and the first installment of the money payment was paid. It was also agreed that the religious corporations in the Philippines be expelled and an autonomous system of government, political and administrative, be established. Though by special request of General Primo de Rivera these conditions were not insisted on in the drawing up of the treaty, the general contending that such concessions would subject the Spanish government to severe criticism and even ridicule. According to historian Teodoro Agoncillo, the pact was made up of 3 documents which together came to be known as the Truce of Biak-na-Bato, and which provided, among other things, that Aguinaldo and his companions would go into voluntary exile abroad. The Governor-General Primo de Rivera would pay the sum of $800,000 to the rebels in 3 installments, $400,000 to Aguinaldo upon his departure from Biak-na-Bato, $200,000 when the arms surrendered by the revolutionists amounted to 800 stand, and the remaining $200,000 when the arms surrendered amounted to 1,000 stand. Te Deum in the cathedral in Manila as thanksgiving for the restoration of peace. The Primo de Rivera would pay the additional sum of $900,000 to the families of the non-combatant Filipinos who suffered during the armed conflict. According to historian Sonia M. Zaid, the agreement consisted of 3 parts: a document called Program, generally as described by Agoncillo; a document called Act of Agreement, which reiterated parts of the program document and hinted at the desire of the Filipinos for reforms but contained no definite agreement by Spain to grant such reforms; a third document which discussed the question of indemnity, specifying that Spain would pay a total of $1,700,000, $800,000 as above, plus $900,000 to be distributed among the civilian population as compensation for the ravages of war. Results. In accordance with the first part of the pact, Aguinaldo and 25 other top officials of the revolution were banished to Hong Kong with $400,000 in the possession. The rest of the men received $200,000, but the third installment was never received. General amnesty was never declared because sporadic skirmishes continued. The revolution continues. Not all revolutionaries complied with the treaty. 1. General Francisco Macabelos established a Central Executive Committee to serve as the interim government until a more suitable one was created. Armed conflicts resumed in almost every province in the Philippines. The colonial authorities continued arresting those suspected of banditry. The Pact of Biak-na-Bato did not signal an end to the revolution. Aguinaldo and his men were convinced that the Spaniards would never give the rest of the money promised to them as a condition of surrender. Furthermore, they believed that Spain reneged on her promise of amnesty. They purchased more arms and ammunition to ready themselves for another fight.